that glass isn't blocking your frame there?
It is, but it's like so little that I don't really care. It's fine. Nope, it's good. I like it. Okay, cool. On this episode, we have Juno Parlange. Am I pronouncing that right? Yeah, we are episode 34 of the Steele Entrepreneur Show. And I've got a little intro for you. I hope it's right. Correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Mm-hmm. On today's episode, we have Jesus, Juno, as I know you as Juno. You'd be surprised at how many people don't know the story behind that. We'll get to that. Jesus is the co-founder of Organic Code, a web design and dev shop here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Jesus is a designer, a developer, Juno-winning musician, no big deal, DJ, writer, producer, mixer, sound engineer. Yeah?
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add
correct. To that? Yeah, world traveler.
Cool guy.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Oh, that's funny, because then I say he's traveled a lot. I went back through all your tweets, so I figured out where you've been traveling. I followed you, and I can't wait to pick his brain today. Jesus, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me here.
I'm excited about it.
This is great. This is like such a cool thing to do. Get to know a little bit more about you too, and just
well, we'll be mostly focusing on you. So let's get that one thing straight. This is okay. It's going to be on you. Where I'd like to start, because I don't know that I ever do a great job of explaining. Like I tell people who you are, but how do you describe yourself? Like when somebody asks, "Tell me a little bit about Juno. Tell me a little bit about Jesus." How do you describe yourself, both in a professional and a personal sense? Starting with whichever you want.
Oh, okay. Well, in the professional, I can say that I am very disciplined. Whatever I said in my mind, I go all the way to do it. So there's not like, time for other stuff. It's kind of like just like this is the goal, this is the way, and until I finish, everything's done. That has given me a really good results with like projects, and even when I started into music and then translate the same thing into web development. And I am very reliable. And, like I always try, make to accommodate things, like spontaneous thing on the spot.
Early. We should note that he was 10 minutes early, very reliable. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no worries. And I usually try to, I know, like I like to be spontaneous in my daily life. So I understand like things, like happen all the time. So I try to, definitely be flexible with things, and projects. Even this is the goal, but there's room, right, to play with things along the way.
So you are reliable, you are hardworking, you are disciplined, you are spontaneous. I've heard you are super fun to be around, and I know that firsthand. You are apparently the most caring dude, I think were the words that I heard on just in my interviews, on at least 3 accounts. And random was the other thing, which I guess kind of goes with the spontaneous thing. What about professionally?
Well, without the professional part.
Yeah.
The personal, right? You say?
Okay. That was the personal bit. Tell me about your professional life.
Oh, well,
who are you professionally?
The professional life. Well, the professional life, I have like a story in music. My first, I will say 15 years, almost 15 years, I was into music.
15 years? How old are you?
And cut.
Keep going.
I'm old enough to vote for sure.
I'm old enough to party?
Yeah, I can get into places, with my ID. So.
All right.
So my first, I would say like close to 15 years. Okay. I was playing music. Playing guitar was my entrance to the music world. The first time I got a guitar in my hands, I was like, I felt like the power, right? Like, like the talking when Mario Bros gets like the star, it was like flames. I was like, wow, this is my jam.
When was that? How young were you?
When I was like 14, probably 14 or 13.
Okay.
And since that moment, I never, just basically, I always brought my guitar with me. I always was playing. Yeah, I never looked back, and I was like just playing, and then translate into, at some point, DJ. When I discovered, how to mix records, I was like, wow, this is, my next thing. And then again became my work. So my professional life, I would say, started right there because, coming from doing something, I was doing it for hobby to start getting paid and start getting paid well and travel and a lot of recognition and stuff in the way. I was like, wow, all this past story of me just practicing and being there and discipline.
I might actually be good at this.
Exactly, allow me to get this. So I was like, just extra turbo, right? Extra charge.
Yeah.
So it was like everything was flowing and it was like a snowball of fire. And probably chocolate too.
Chocolate.
So it was just everything was happening, and again that gave me the understanding, and I would say mostly like the feeling, right, of doing something right, but also being working towards that in a right way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like two things. So that translates.
Being sort of well aligned.
Exactly
what you're good at aligned with what you can kind of be successful at. I guess. That sound about right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I came to Canada, and then same principle applied, just keep working. I came for school, and just to finish with the actual question about my professional life, it's I like to give the best I can. I like to be able to serve as much people as possible, which sometimes I learned the hard way as entrepreneurs. That is not great because you can't, there's just one day, and 24 hours and so much you can do. But I like to, being flexible and having a goal and work towards it.
I like how you're very abstract. You don't talk a lot about. So when usually the way people answer, who am I professionally? They usually say, well, they would probably answer, well, I'm a web designer, I'm a web developer. You didn't say any of those things. But why do you think you didn't? I'm just curious why you didn't focus on any of those things.
Well, what I'm going to say is
I feel like there's a good answer there.
Oh, no, totally. All this experience that I have, and currently my current company, which is web design and web development does, is I actually am a producer. And I realized that when I was into music, but I thought in my mind, you're like, oh yeah, this is what I'm good at, right? Yeah. And when I transitioned to the next adventure in my life, which was web design and web development, at some point I realized that my brain works the same, both sides, get the creative part, which is the design, and they also get the technical part, which is the coding, everything. So I realized it's like, wow, my brain works the same, and I communicate with the team the same, and I arrange things the same as music.
So you're still producing.
Exactly.
Just something different.
That's what I do.
Cool.
I produce things, and right now what I'm producing is websites, and we also work with web tools, and I'll tell you later also what I'm up to in the next part.
Cool. I want to focus a little bit on, you picked up a guitar at 14 years old. I want to learn a little bit about your childhood at that time. I certainly didn't pick up an instrument at 14 and run with it, and a part of me kind of wishes I did for a lot of different reasons. But can you tell me a little bit about your childhood, growing up, that kind of stuff, your journey, I guess, to the US, to Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Mexico City. And I grew up with my mom and my sisters because my dad left home when I was probably younger, definitely before 10,
okay.
Somewhere around 7, 10. And when I discovered music, that was my outlet. That was me, trying to express all the sadness that I got when, it's a life change, right?
Sure, absolutely.
At that
a big
age,
one.
Yeah, exactly. At that age, I couldn't understand what was happening. I discovered it with, in the next years, and then when I started growing up and, recently, reading and stuff, right? But at that moment, that became my outlet. So I was channeling all the things that I couldn't express and physically express, because actually my mom told me that I used to be very quiet. And I was like, that makes sense. It's I was like completely like, I'm not gonna say anything because I don't know how to deal with, stuff. So my outlet was the music. Like, got the guitar, my friend taught me, and I was like, whoa, this is...
What kind of guitar was it?
It was acoustic, just acoustic, and nylon strings at the moment. Then after I went to and get like another, with the metal strings. But this was for me kind of like, like, I don't know, I felt like, like some magic, some stuff. I was like, what's this? This is like kind of, I want to put it away, like, okay, one more song, right?
Yeah.
And that part of my life is
Maybe
totally...
it felt like it was sort of it's something you kind of controlled. It was like the one thing you could control, what you put in and sort of what you got out, versus everything else. Like, maybe everything else kind of didn't have, you weren't in control of anything else. Does that resonate at all, maybe?
Yeah, like completely. Like I will go somewhere else,
Yeah.
like start playing and boom, it was like, so I thought like, oh, well, this is definitely meant to be, this is what I should be doing. So I start playing a lot, and I start actually, to be honest, I was like, I consider myself an introvert still, because that's how I grew up, but at some point it changed it. But at that moment, I just was really happy to be in my room and, playing guitar and practicing. And it went sometimes like 10 hours. My mom used to, ask me like, hey, are you gonna eat? And I'm like, 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes. And then 1 more hour, like after, my mom is like, are you gonna come for dinner? Like 5 more minutes.
Are you still alive in there?
Yeah, exactly. After a couple hours, he will be mad at me, because he's like now you have to go for dinner. It's like, there is no excuse, come, because I was a child. So anyway, all my childhood was playing guitar, basically, hanging with my friends and playing, like with the crew, going to play soccer or going to play football or something, baseball, and playing guitar.
And so when did you know that you wanted to, or you were going to leave Mexico?
Actually, that was later on, like after, when I became a teenager, things got a little bit sidetracked. I found out like parties was my new favorite thing. So
Hence the DJ
that was my new
stuff.
outlet, for getting emotions out.
Sure.
So I was like, wow, this is great. I just have to go and be there, right? And it was fun because, you get to know more people, and you go, you start going out at night, and it's like, wow, what's this, right? Because only the grown-ups will do this. So you are now like, oh, I'm a grown-up. I can just go and come back anytime. And that gave me a lot of new insights about life, and mostly about music. I discovered like the electronic music scene, like the DJs at the moment, they were playing deep house and progressive trance, and they were all mixing live instruments with beats. And I was like, wow, like there's guitars and a beat, kind of like, and it's like, oh, there's pianos and there's voices.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is something I would like to do. So I actually, this is another part of my story. I went to live to the beach. I was going for 3 months only.
To the beach?
Yeah, to the beach in Mexico.
Okay.
It was probably, this was the last adventure before coming here to Vancouver.
Okay.
I went as kind of like a rebel act, and also to gain some not momentum, like get some time, right? Like buy some time to think the next part of my life. I went to university 2 years for communications, but I was not happy with it. So at the middle...
In Mexico?
Yeah. Okay. Middle of the career, I told my mom, it's like, I don't want to do this, and I don't want you to pay it, because he was, like paying it with, hard work, earned money. And I was like, I feel like, no, this is, like, let's stop. And I get out. Very adult thing to do.
Well, I think it actually is. A lot of kids, or a lot of teenagers, or college students would continue on because they're, there's a certain I don't know, expectation, I suppose, and they don't want to let anybody down. But instead, you decided to speak up and do a very sort of grown up thing and sort of consider, you know, what your mom was sacrificing in order to put you through college. Like, I can't really imagine anything more grown up than that.
Well, at the moment for me it was more kind of like escaping, but makes sense.
Yeah, maybe subconsciously you're just being real grown up.
And the next thing I know, I was living at the beach, went for 3 months, ended up staying 1 year. There was a lot of party because it's just a touristic destination for, you know, just having fun.
Was this Cancun or was this the other side?
It's 1 hour away from Cancun, south, and it's called Playa del Carmen.
Yeah. I know the area.
And it's beautiful, you know, the ocean, and you have the pyramids, and there's like the jungle, and when you get there, you see everything, and it's like, wow, what's
still
this
sort of
place?
untouched a little bit. No, it's certainly not like Cancun.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but still, right now it's getting bigger, actually.
I believe.
But at that moment, everything was still, you know, like a couple of houses, a couple of buildings here and there, hotels, and
Lots
but
changed
not
since then.
Yeah, not like a lot of people there. So it was kind of like, oh, this is cool. So then, obviously, in this time, I was I was thinking the next step, and I was like, at that moment is when I discovered records, and you know, for sure, I touched like 2 turntables, and I felt again that, you know, like fire. So I was like, wow, this is something I want to do. So in my mind was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to the city, because I wanted to study professional, to be, you know, a music producer, and mostly music first was my first goal. And at the beach, there's nothing, right? There's just party. There's no schools, and probably there's some things. And at the moment, internet was not, you know, that kind of like a fashion something. You know, it was kind of like, you know, still the beginnings.
Yeah.
Not the very beginnings. I'm
Great
not that
for
old.
email, but
yeah, it was, you know, like the early 2000s. So I took my things, went back to the city, and then started playing records. I got a job in a record store, so I was practicing there every day, and, you know, just managing the store. And then at some point, people start asking me, just hire me. First of all, it was like, oh, you want to play to my party? And I was like, okay, cool. Where is it? No, the bar across the street. And then the next one is a club, and then the next one was, you know, a city. And at some point, that was my job, and I became like a DJ full time. Again, I just basically quit what I was doing just to pursue music.
how do you keep the professional side and the party side? Like, is it worthwhile keeping them kind of separate? Because I can imagine getting very easily wrapped up in sort of the scene and then kind of losing track of the professional pursuits. Do you remember how and if you were able to keep those separate at all?
Absolutely, and it's a great question, because I actually quit drinking at 21, and I
said you said like the only 21-year-old ever.
I did, because I had to separate it. My mind was really clear. It's like party and DJ go well together, because you are there and you're you're creating the party, and then, you know, it could be a mess. And I saw some examples, you know, of friends that were also doing, you know, DJing, and I was like, I definitely want to treat it as my job, because I like it and it's my passion, and it's, at the end for me was like, I love music, or I like party, right? I mean, you can live both, but I was like, music is what I love to do. I really don't need the party, and I quit.
Was that an easy thing to sort of upkeep when I'm sure you had people offering you drinks and sort of badgering you to drink and that sort of thing? How did you sort of remain true to that?
It was actually easy. It was like,
I have just a disciplined guy.
I have an ability to switch my state in.
Yeah.
And I didn't know at that moment, but, you know, it's the state we all switch. Like, you know, Tony Robbins said, we can all switch anything at any time, in any moment. But at that moment, I was like, for me, it's like, you know, it's the balance, right? It's like, okay, the music or this, okay, I don't need this. I'm going to go here. I have like very, I would say selective, but very, I'm kind of like an extremist, right? That's my personality. Yeah. So if I like something, I like. If not. And if I like it, like boom, you know. Yeah. Everything around
everything
it
else
is like
falls aside.
Yeah, it's like I don't even see what's there. It's like boom, just jump on it. So when I was doing that, and actually that gave me more great results, which they were awards, and I started creating music, just bought a computer and doing some like self-taught stuff. And I started selling some tracks here and there, and things were going great. That actually fuels me to not even look back at drinking or, any other recreational drug that happened probably, when I was in the party. I like that I said probably. But you know what I mean, right?
Yes.
Like there was nothing. I was like, wow, this is what I want to do. And it's like, yeah, I don't need this.
Everything else didn't really matter.
So when I was in that moment, and everything was, 5 years, one day, this is actually a really cool part that I always remember, like as a movie, but also as a great moment in my life. Every single day for 5 years, I would wake up and I was like, wow, I was so grateful and so thankful that was my job. Because I will wake up, go for a run or go to the gym, go back and hit the notes every single day for 8 hours or 10. No one was paying me, no one, nothing. I was like just hitting the notes and recording and, like all the cycle again. And then I would work maybe 3 days, which probably total 6 to 8 hours. And I was completely set, to live my life. I was traveling across the country. I was, just, hanging out with my friends. There was like seriously, I would say like probably 10% of stress in those 10 years. In 5 years.
Yeah.
That was the moment that I decided to be a music producer for real. Because everything great, momentum, there was a lot of media, TV, radio, magazines. There was like, this is actually a funny story with my mom. I think 2 or 3 years in, my mom saw me on TV. And she's like...
She must have been so proud.
Yeah, but she's like, is that what you do when you go out? And I was like, because, I was never did that because of the fame or whatever. I just was happy to have a job that allowed me all this freedom and flexibility and doing exactly what I wanted to do at every moment. So I was like kind of like a bit embarrassed, and she's like, wow, that's great. And I'm like, there you go, that's me.
Very cool.
So anyway, so that part of my life, when I decided to be a music producer, again, things start happening really well, and probably we'll talk about it later, but I just realized that I was in a constant state of flow, which is the in the zone moments or an altered state of consciousness, for 5 years. So when you are there for 5 years, like things that you would never thought happens without even having to actually try. So at that moment, I got a really good business. Basically, this guy comes and he was working for a really big company in Mexico, and he's like, hey, we want to buy your songs, your music. Could you be willing to, have a meeting with us and chat about it? And I was like, of course. So when I found about this deal, gave me money to live at least a couple of years.
Wow.
And for me,
How old were you at that time?
20, it was going to be turned 26. Like I was, let's say 26.
Jesus.
So when that happened, for me, my mom was clearly that it was supposed, this is what I was looking for, to go to somewhere else to get a degree in music production and then continue my career as a music producer.
How did you not blow all that money?
Well, to be honest, when I got the money, I was like, oh, wow.
Because it's probably...
cars, apartments, and all this stuff.
So were you sort of disciplined in not spending it? Because, I mean, it could run out very quickly if you just went crazy, or how did you deal with that?
Again, when I realized that, because actually months earlier, it wasn't before, prior to that moment, I remember clearly telling to my ex-girlfriend, is like, you know what, because I was looking for schools in Mexico. I was like, I want to go to school somewhere else, outside Mexico City, because, there's like, in the music world, there's like definitely places like LA, Toronto, the UK, that they're like super advanced and mostly in the electronic field. So it's like, I want to be there, I want to breathe the environment. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, I think I created this possibility. This guy comes, give me all this. And when I realized that all this money in the bank was for that, it was a no-brainer. I started just like calling the school, send money, enroll, everything like boom, boom, and 6 months. I told my mom, it's like, I'm leaving to Canada. And she's like, okay. And when it came really fast, I was like, Mom, I'm leaving seriously, like next week. She's like, yeah, I know, but for real. And like, yeah. And then I came here for school. That's how I ended up in Vancouver. I came here for music production, sound recording, and I also did a sound design program.
How much time, so you started kind of basically fresh in Vancouver, which I think would be daunting to most, be kind of scary to most. How much time passed between the time you came to Vancouver and the time you won the Juno?
I would say probably between 3 and 3.5 years.
Wow.
I actually finished the school program, which, by the way, I did 2 programs because I wanted to be all day in school. So I told my instructors, he's like, can I just be here or sit or, or practice? And they were like, actually, you can sit in all the other classes if you want. They said, we can't give you another diploma unless you pay for it, but it's like, if you just want to learn. So I was at school all day. I basically live at school, and then when I will finish school, I will go home and I set up like the den, which is like the closet for the shoes. I remove everything, tell my roommates like, get all your stuff out of here, and this is my studio. And I claim it and I paint it and that set up my studio. So when I will come home, I walk my dog and then just keep working on the room and close it, right? Because it was a closet. And basically I used to do that like all 1 year. I went back, finished school, went back to Mexico for 3 months, but to be honest, like my heart was already here. I didn't feel like I belonged there, and I was, like just basically dreaming about being here. So I came back and I asked for, advice, legal advice, and they told me, the only thing you need to do is apply, and this is the process, and the only thing you need to prove is you can, support yourself for the next 2 years. I was like, perfect, all check. So that's how I ended up here. And then in those 2 years, because I had to wait, because obviously you can't work because you don't have work permit or anything, and that's why you have to prove you can support yourself. I was just learning. I started volunteering at the studio in Gastown with one of the best producers in town, which his name is Chin Injeti. And
I've seen his name around.
He taught me a lot of the things I know about vocals and recording and the music, and he's well connected in LA. He has some Grammys, and Junos, and he goes way back in history of the music. So he basically took me under his wing. He's like, you want to just learn and practice, come to studio. And I was like, okay, perfect. So I was actually just, learning, and I was the, go-to, like the coffee boy, but I was, observing everything.
Why do you think he, I was talking to Connor yesterday, Connor Beaton of Man Talks yesterday, and he had mentioned that, we were talking about mentors and business coaches, and he had mentioned that typically speaking, a mentor picks you. Did you feel that was the case? And why do you think, what do you think it was about you? What do you think you were displaying at that time to him that made him choose you, if that's what you think happened?
I think it was my definitely persistence and my discipline. Because he was like, wow, this guy wants to do things for real. And the first times I went to the studio, I think the first week at least, we went super late on the session, and I was like just on, like if it was 10 in the morning. So he was like, okay, cool.
This guy wants to work.
Exactly, okay. So he was like, okay, just come. And again, I was not getting paid or anything, but he was like, wow, he wants to really be here. And obviously with a couple of years, he started telling me, well, this is how I record, this is how I do things, and, try things. At the end, I was calling some shots because already the technical side is always been really easy for me to learn. And so he was like, okay, you know how to execute this. Let's just do what you think it is great for the project. So I think, yeah, I think, I mean, obviously I like what he was doing and I admire him because, you know, his career. But yeah, when he saw probably those traits, he's like, oh, just come to the studio. And he's also a really nice person, like a really nice warmer. He's like always giving, right? So
yeah. How did you get involved with, I can't remember their name. The song that you won the Juno on was We Are.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of the group again? I want to say it says the D.
It's called Digging Roots.
Digging Roots. How did you get involved with them?
So I met their album producer at the studio,
Yeah.
at Shin's studio.
One thing led to another.
Exactly, and then also we work on, because the producer of that album, she's also a singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
Called Kini Star. We record some of her songs, and she's like, "Oh, we would like to bring you on board of the project," which amazingly the project started just like right after. At the same time, I got my PR. So I was like, okay, perfect. I mean, and now also I'm gonna be able to get paid. That's great.
Yeah.
So she's like, yeah, of course. You just come. We need you to come to Toronto. We need you to record, and basically live there with us, like probably 2 months, because and I was like, yeah. I mean, that's what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So she connected me with them. We start recording, and we start, like getting some melodies and some other electronic stuff. And at the end, when we finished the album, they told me, oh, would you be interested in kind of like, see how we work in, like a live environment with you DJing, because you used to be a DJ. And I was like, of course. We went on a tour. We ended up like with a couple of gigs. We ended up touring from Toronto to Canada. Yeah. It was, that was summer. So I think we toured around the fall and winter. And I think it was the next summer too. Spring, summer, we came road tripping to Toronto to Vancouver and back. So we went everywhere playing, and then the Juno Awards came. We were nominated, and
what did that feel like?
Oh, it was great. It was
unexpected.
To be honest, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when we were nominated, that was the unexpected. It was like, wow. I know they were like really into before, like well connected, and they will, I think they were also close to the nomination or something before, right? Like they will have like, they're already on the radar. Yeah. But yeah, this time when it came to nomination, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then when it happens, it was like, okay, I was actually at the moment I was in LA because I got some gigs producing and I was traveling, and I was like, just, they text me and I was like, wow, we won, that's amazing.
That's incredible.
And yeah, we all got our little Juno, which that's actually maybe one of the questions.
Yes.
I brought the Juno, which looks like, well, a little bit thing, like crystal thing, but probably this,
Sure.
And then I put it in the table, and I used to live at the moment with my roommates, which is Kelsey. Yeah. And we have another couple.
Irish guy.
Yeah, so Kelsey, the Irish guy, he couldn't remember my name, but he clearly asked me, he's like, oh, what's this? And I was like, oh, it's a Juno. He's like, a Juno? A Juno Award? He's like, yeah. But you know what? I just brought it, and Kelsey, so it was like, it was our, it was normal for us, but he was like, wow, that's a Juno. Like, yeah. So we went to the pool, and we were, hanging out with more friends, and it was kind of like a social day. Yeah. And when we came back to the apartment, the obviously Irish friends, people, they were, a little bit tipsy, and the beers. He couldn't remember my name, so he's like, hey, you, Juno, come here, or something like that. And Kelsey's like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And
you're gonna be Juno. It suits you. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I think I can live with that.
It's pretty funny.
I know.
I wondered, because I met you as, Lucas introduced you as Juno. Your Facebook is Juno. So for the longest time, I just knew you as Juno, but I didn't know that story until just yesterday when I was talking to Kelsey, who speaks the world of you, let me tell you. Intent. I wanted to talk a little bit about intent today. So what would you say your intent, or I don't know if intent and purpose are the same thing. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But let's start with intent. What would you say your intent is?
As you refer as the overall?
Yeah, just your intent in this world.
Well, definitely, I have very clear my intent in this world because 2 years ago, I started. Well, actually, it was like 4 years ago. I started reading, a lot of stuff and topics, researching, and basically, I needed to change my life
Anything
at that
in
moment.
particular, or?
So yeah, the intent for me right now is I'm creating definitely a business where I can step out and it keeps growing and gives me more time.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go into VR, which is something we can talk later, but I'm really passionate about it. I also want to be able to all this freedom and time gives me opportunity to create like a society or foundation, to help people. My first thought was when I was making music, it's like, wow, there's so many talented kids that they are like bartending or stuff, and no one, kind of like sees the real talent. And it's crazy how the talented people are, and they don't have the resources to
They
fund
don't have a mentor or somebody willing to help.
So yeah, I used to fund, example, those kind of causes. I'm very passionate about animals, animals and, rescuing animals too. And I'm very also passionate to help people who needs help at any moment, which, life happens and there's things, accidents, and sometimes people doesn't have resources. So actually I started with those intents a couple of years ago with some group of friends. We've been donating our 10% every month to different causes, right? Like Facebook things you see, or someone needs help directly and like, oh, my friend or my friend of a friend and stuff like that. So I'm creating right now all these possibilities and setting the structures so I can just be something, like a force for good for the planet.
Why don't you tell me about that? Let's not wait till the end. Tell me
Okay.
tell me a little bit more about that. I'm really curious.
Yeah, absolutely. About, all what I say, like VR stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
So, virtual reality is going to definitely be the next big thing. It's going to take probably 7 to 12 years still. But when it gets, like it just hits, it's going to be like the phone, right? Probably won't even have phones anymore. It's going to be all, VR headset and you're, somewhere else, phone calls.
Hopefully it's a little less big than...
Yeah, but the usual devices.
Maybe it could just be like a pair of sunglasses, like in the movies, where you can you have a pair of sunglasses on and you can see the little screen on the inside of the... That would be awesome.
Yeah, so I had the pleasure and the opportunity to go to the National Film Board. A friend of mine, his brother works there, and they got us like, oh yeah, because I was really interested. He's like, oh, maybe... let me ask him. They can show us, the technology.
Yeah.
And we were just went to basically try a couple of things. But in that moment, I felt like, again, like, wow, this is me. This is calling me again. And probably it's the fact that you are somewhere else with this reality, like, because you are somewhere else. I was really impressed that the people or situation will come in when you're inside, let's call it, in the VR, and they come to you and you move, you react, even though there's nothing because it's a game or a movie or whatever. And I was like, wow, what if you actually use these kind of like sensations and things that happen in the VR to help people, right? Like must be some, kind of like correlation in between helping people, people who are in hospitals, they can move, they can actually go somewhere, or just alterate states of, our current state, because imagine if you replay your best moment and you're again right there, boom, like your vibe is gonna go up, you're gonna change, you're gonna, instead of being sad, you're like, oh, stressed, you play that clip and you're like, boom, I'm somewhere else, that's great.
Some people say that a lot can be kind of cured or helped just by changing your state of mind. Is that sort of what you're thinking? Is that sort of a way to augment or to temporarily change someone's state of mind to help with healing? Is that kind of...
That could be one of the things I thought. Again, I'm still just putting everything down what I want to go, full on 100%. Because again, VR is gonna change every single aspect of our lives completely. VR and AR, right, which is totally different. AR, you can see things through glasses, and you can lock screens, like you can have your video
like
here.
Pokemon would probably be
Exactly.
augmented reality.
Exactly. You can place things from, like computer stuff into the spaces because it calculates the space around you. And VR is completely, you're in another world, which is really fun, right? It's kind of like fun to explore. It's going to be definitely something that you're going to be able to go in and learn really fast. Let's say you are a dentist or something and you can see things, you know, how it's happening on the spot without having to go an operate way to do an operation, you know. There's so many possibilities. You know, play, you can see how people is like actually doing music and what are they actually, you know, zooming into everything you need. You're basically everywhere. So yeah, that's what I really like. But what I mostly really like is that you can change your state in 1 second. For me, that was like, it's impressive. It's like, you know, you just go, it's like, I don't know if you have heard that story of the, you know, like the zebra is running, the lion is chasing after it. But then, you know, the zebra, if it escapes, which this is the case in this, for example, it escapes, the lion goes away and the zebra is very stressed probably and it's really, you know, like everything is like alert, you know, trying to survive. But then after probably 20 minutes after, she's fine. She forgets the stress and she will move to the next moment. And we all humans, we have the ability to do that, but we go back and replay the
stressor.
The movie that is causing all the stress, and then we snap off the moment, but it's like, oh, and you go back and bring it to the present moment. So for me, that's really interesting. It's like, wow, this is totally like a tool that could be really beneficial for a lot of people on that field.
That could help people sort of escape from replaying that particular stressor.
Change their current state. You know, like if you are stressed and you're like, oh, I'm gonna play, I don't know, let's say the Maldives Islands tape or the Maldives Islands experience, and you are somewhere else and you're enjoying, stress goes down, and then you know you finish, okay, keep going with what I'm doing, you know, or play your favorite roller coaster ride, and then you're like, wow, so hype, and then you're like, okay, cool, I can, you know, go to these meetings right now, you know, like all these things that basically get us to be a top performers. That's something I'm really passionate about, and when I was in that state and I see the relationship is like, wow, like I've been reading a lot of top performance and, you know, like flow states and, you know, which are altered state of consciousness, and it all makes sense because I lived it when I was making music.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, everybody, we can do this, right?
Interesting. Well, I'm interested to see how you're going to create sort of that application, or how you'll create sort of a situation where people can sort of really benefit from that more than in just sort of an entertainment type of way.
Exactly.
That'd be really cool. I've got a couple more questions for you. I think I wanted to start with, this is one I'm kind of particularly interested in just because it's something that I'm also going through. And that is, I've become, I guess, a little bit more of a seeker of knowledge. Whereas before, looking back on before, I felt that I was a little bit perhaps arrogant or maybe just ignorant, maybe a combination of both. As somebody that I'm hearing over and over again is just a real sort of seeker of knowledge, was there sort of a catalyst for that? I guess what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to identify in more people what was the catalyst for change. What took them from where they were to somebody who was constantly trying to develop themselves, trying to improve, trying to learn, trying to be a better human being, all that kind of stuff. Was there kind of a breakthrough point? And if there was, what got you there? If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So in my case, definitely was a moment, you know, it was like a moment, right? I was probably 15 years going up, you know, into my music career.
Yeah.
And at some time, it basically, you know, everything, you know, like life is, you know, a wave, so it's ups and downs. So obviously there was like going up, it has to have like a very hard fall, hard going down. So life crashed at that moment, right? Like things stopped happening. I was at that moment going back and forth to LA, so I didn't really have a foundation or like a connection, a network here. So when I actually decided to just be here, because it's like, okay, this is fun, but what's the next step? And end up here, suddenly there was like less work in the music. It's very, music in career, you have like gigs, you have more a lot of money, sometimes you don't. And I was stressing. I took started taking other day jobs. And at some point, everything started like kind of like crumbling.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I just find myself in a spot that I was not really happy about it.
Which and perhaps not prepared for either.
No, which it was like doing, waitress or, like working in restaurants just to pay my bills, because I decided that was my decision to stay here, but paying my bills and some music gigs and some DJ gigs. But again, the situation was not optimal. A lot of things happened. It was when I turned 30, which is also like the moment you are like, oh, what are we here? Like a lot of questions.
It's that quarter life crisis.
Exactly. And so it was totally like a mess. And so I was like, okay, I'm totally like all the way down, like what I want to do now. Yeah. So obviously after a while of being like imagine just being like really like happy in this space, and then it's like super uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, to be honest, like the first thing I typed in the internet on Google, I was like, help, right? So exclamation mark. It's like, I need help. I don't know where to start, but I know I definitely need help. The first video, it was Tony Robbins.
Interesting.
I was like, okay, wow. So played.
Had you heard of Tony Robbins before then?
Well, actually, yes, but just
never
like
really
a
digged
name.
into his material. Okay.
Because Kelsey, is been into life coaching all her life. So she mentioned stuff, and then I watched the video, and then was like, like Tony speaks to you, like just you.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, all what he said totally resonates with me. So I remember I finished the video. I told Kelsey, oh, Kelsey, I know now what you do. All this time I know you take clients and calls, but now I know what you do. She's like, okay, thanks. And since that moment, everything what he said makes sense, and I started researching. I was like, whoa, I need to know more, and I need to know who. I went into another videos, right? Jim Brown taught him, Tony Robbins, and Earl Nightingale, and then it bring me to a lot of people, like now I'm blank, but all the first ones, the pioneers. Mostly I start following Jim Brown and Tony Robbins, and then I start just reading, and I took a couple of workshops, let's say kind of like masterminds workshops with friends.
Yeah.
And they were all my circle of friends at that moment, they were all entrepreneurs and into, personal development. I was like, wow, okay, totally, definitely there's something calling me here, there's something like some cues, right? Like you just learn. So I started learning, and once I started learning, I realized that, first of all, I don't know why, but in school I stopped reading because I was not interested in that at all. But when I started again reading after that gap, to be honest, in that gap I read a couple of things, but mostly music stuff and research. And then I was like, wow, you can learn about your body. You can learn about how we interact with people, human behavior. And it's like, wow, now I'm gonna learn about the relationships, how men and women work. Mm-hmm. And now I'm gonna learn about finances, because I also want to master my finances. Yeah. And every single book that I started reading was like, I felt like something added to the card, and I was like, wow, this is great. Now I have more perspective. And then I start talking to people and learning from them, and I was like, wow, this is interesting, because you just need some time with people and learn. That's what I like. I like to learn from experiences, because again, what it says on the books and everything says like, you just find a mentor or someone who teach you their years of experience, and then you can start applying things. And that's how I started going up in my life again. Things change. Basically,
you kind of cared again.
Yeah, when Jim Brown says like, once you change yourself, things around change. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, this is taking a while. Why is it not changing? But actually, it was changing it until the point that, boom, I find myself in Victoria going for web development school. Mm-hmm. And then I came back here, again, internship for a company, and suddenly it was like, wow, I was living again, a different life. Obviously different than the music, but it was like not on the mess, right?
Do you ever find when you're taking in so many inputs, being that maybe you're listening to podcasts, maybe you're reading books, maybe you're going to workshops and all these things, that sometimes you don't leave enough, like it's good that you're taking it in, you're absorbing it, but you don't sometimes leave enough time for action. You don't leave enough time for saying, taking that one or two things that really resonated with you in the book and actually putting it into action and trying it out and sort of seeing, okay, let's see what that does for me. Do you ever struggle with that? And if so, do you have any sort of techniques for making sure that you actually take what you learned into your life and put it to work?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, because I like to just go all the way in, with what I find, and now is learning too, which is my, I would say, hobby / new addiction, just to learn. I put everything in, and I just realized that you can actually start executing things at every single moment. So even though it's there, like you put it there, and probably it's like, oh, what I'm gonna do with this. At some point, the opportunity comes and you're like, boom, you just, throw it out there.
Do you have a pretty good memory?
Selective.
Which
what I like, or I'm focusing on, boom, I grab it. And all the other stuff, no. But again, it comes. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting.
It's there when you need it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It comes in the moment that you are like, or stressing, and you're like, oh, okay, I have... what's this? And then I always go back and read a couple of things like, okay, got it.
Okay, so it would kind of, the moment would strike where you would need that little piece of knowledge that you picked up, and then you would know to kind of go back, review that piece wherever that piece of knowledge was, and then put it into action. Mm-hmm. Okay. The moment would strike for me, and then I would not know where to go because I wouldn't remember where I picked it up. And I might be able to say, okay, well, maybe it was that book. And so what I started to do is, like you see in this book, for example, is I put all these bloody tabs, right? Mm-hmm. So the things that resonate the most with me are one of these tabs. So instead of having to go back and read the entire book, which takes me forever because I'm so slow, is I can just go to each one of these tabs, and it's happened a few times now. Is I'll just go back to the tabs, and then I'll find it, mm-hmm. and then I'll quickly usually write it down on something else, mm-hmm. and then I'll put it into action. That's what I do. But it sounds like you've got a bit better of a memory than I have.
Well, lucky for you. It's just again selective, but it seems like it's there when I need it.
Motivation. I like to ask people where they get their motivations. Lately, what happens, it's on and off, but sometimes I feel like, some mornings are just tougher to get up, tougher to get out of bed. We have the luxury of kind of structuring our own days. Mm-hmm. We sort of choose which meetings we take, when those meetings happen, things like that. So we make our own schedules. Do you ever have moments where you struggle with motivation, and how do you overcome them? Or do you just kind of give in and just, how do you deal with that, if you deal with that at all?
And actually it's very interesting because recently I had one of those days. Mm-hmm. So what happened is I woke up, and first of all, I went to bed late, and I go to bed, I have like my early bedtime, like it's like I go at least weekdays.
Late?
What's late?
Yeah.
I think that day was around 2.
Okay, that's pretty late.
Yeah. But usually I go to bed at 10:30,
Oh, wow.
11 at the most. So for me, it's like already half night in.
Yes.
So I went to bed and I woke up, close to usually I woke up by default, like, between 6:30 and 7.
Do you use an alarm or no alarm?
I use, but without alarm. Like, even if I just don't put my alarm, I wake up.
Okay.
And that day, obviously I woke up like close to 8. And since the first moment I was like, wow, this... Again, right? Like I didn't feel motivated. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I thought it was a day off. Like those kind of like, you're like, oh. And I was like, okay, let's keep going. And every single thing that happened along the way, it was totally failing. Everything going the wrong way. Boom. I was like, okay, what's this?
You just weren't motivated to do anything.
Exactly, and I was like, oh, I don't even want to do anything because I felt like, yeah, even if I do, this is going wrong. Like all the half of the day, everything is going wrong. So the first thing I thought is like, okay, let's get to, like 5 p.m. and then I can just go and chill. But then I was like, you know what? I don't have to. Because again, we all run our shows and our work, and I decided to chill. There's like, hey, I need to breathe. Let's see what's important, from the list, going that book, like the 7 Habits of...
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, this is
7 habits of effective people.
Yeah.
Is that that's what it is? Yeah.
So
I haven't read it yet. It's on my bookshelf. It's on my list. Sorry, go ahead.
Don't worry. I put like the important things on the list because there's important, priority, not
so you
important.
prioritize the stuff. Yeah.
Important thing, and it's like, boom, I'm gonna just finish this. And probably I think there were 2 or 3 items, not a lot of work. And I was like, okay, let's just, after this, like the end of this is like the reward is, like a good dinner. I'm just gonna chill because usually I work all the time, right? Like we're entrepreneurs. Sometimes weekends you are like, working and odd times here and there. And I do put a lot of times in work. So I'm like, I need to chill. Obviously you and I need to chill and acknowledge that I need to, like take some time, just finish this. The reward was, a great meal and, like probably a video, a documentary, because even though when I'm chilling, now rarely I see movies. Before I used to watch movies. Is a documentary you see.
You created kind of like a little reward system for yourself, and just, I guess instead, so if I'm understanding correctly, you decide, okay, I have this huge list of things to do. If I just try and go through each one of these things, I'm not going to get it done. So let's make it a little bit more bite-sized. Let's pick the most important things and let's bang those out, knowing that if I can bang those 3 things out, which psychologically you're like, well, that's easy. That's no problem.
Exactly.
That's not that bad. And then there's a reward at the end. It's that much easier and sweeter, perhaps.
Exactly. So therefore, I finished the task, went for a walk with my dog, and then came back and chill. I think I probably kind of like have like a mini nap, and I took it really easy that night. Went to bed really, really early, and the next day I was like, wow,
you killed it the next day.
Yeah, and the next day I was like, I think by the 10 hour of work, I was completely on fire. And I was like, wow, I felt like it's just like 4 hours.
Interesting.
So it basically, I needed the time to, recharge, and definitely we'll have those days that everything goes wrong, kind of like acknowledges that's happening in the day. Tomorrow is going to be a new day. So let's just finish the important.
That's a good approach.
So and I noticed I've been doing this, when that happens.
Kelsey, Joel, and even Connor, and I think even Lucas, they all sort of remarked that you are just kind of a random and sometimes super weird dude in a really good way. And so I was thinking about, I was looking at, I kind of got this big list of questions, and I just go through them and I try and find ones that I think are going to be best suited to the particular individual after I've done sort of my research. So my question is, what's one thing you do that people think is super, super weird or super crazy? Crazy or weird, either or both?
Okay.
It's kind of a tough one.
Yeah, because it's basically how I live.
Is there anything in particular that people like remark on a lot?
Yeah, well, I definitely have the ability to make new friends all the time along the way.
You're always surrounded by women, attractive women all the time, I noticed.
Hashtag. Yeah, well, I have the ability to meet, new people.
Yeah.
And there's always things, randomly happen when, are into kind of like open for that. And I always come to my friends with stories like, oh, we met this or that in the supermarket, and we end up in different situations. So we end up like in a impromptu dinner with people.
Yeah.
And friends are like, yeah, of course. It's like, you know what I mean?
Just Juno.
I I don't see like the barrier of like you know, there's obviously I respect people, but it's just a friendly way, right? To start connecting and people, okay, cool. And then we're like, oh, what if we, you know, oh, we go party here at this restaurant. Okay. And, you know, things like that happen a lot.
You just kind of go with the flow.
Exactly. Because I'm spontaneous, right?
Yes.
I really like to be spontaneous. So this is something, it happens a lot. I'm just trying to remember what else.
I'll give you one that I thought was, Kelsey and I laughed about it. Your friend Kelsey and I laughed a lot about it. And I was thinking about how can I make this interview like really weird, and I didn't go to the length because I didn't go to all those lengths because I was like, okay, that would just take forever to prepare. But she said that sometimes you create these platters. And so you'll have like a little bit of chicken, you'll have like some grapes, and then you'll have like maybe some olives, and then maybe a bowl of cereal, and then a grilled cheese, and some nuts, like stuff that does not belong together, whatever. Absolutely. But you're just like, that's what you're feeling. Mm-hmm. Like that's what you're into at that moment, and so that's what you're gonna do. And to her, she looks at that and she's like, it's just the least cohesive thing, but that's just the way Juno lives his life. Mm-hmm. He's just like, he just picks what he wants, and that's what he does, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And no one's really going to influence that. It's just that's just sort of what he's about.
Yeah, that's totally true. And what I like from these trays is because, you know, it's my tray, and I go and put it in my bed and, you know, chill and watch a documentary. But yeah, one day I bought, I think it was like 7 or 10 different types of cheese, because I love cheese still.
That's a lot of cheese.
I don't eat a lot now because of the lactose intolerant thing, but yeah. I used to cut like a little bit of everything, and it was like, this is all my, you know, new 7 cheeses, so I'm gonna try them all, you know, grapes, and yeah, like sushi in the same platter, probably a quesadilla, and yeah, I will do that. And also that reminded me something, it happened when we were living together, that it was, I mean, for me, it was normal just to see what happened. I knew the outcome, but I wanted to do it, just like, again, just for have fun in life. I used to have like this actually it was the Irish guy at the moment. He left.
That Irish guy again.
Yeah, he was Kelsey's friend. Okay. So we were living together. He was a roommate, mm-hmm. and he left a computer, all Mac. And the keyboard was really dirty. It was really old, the one that is like, you know, clunky, and you do type like. Sure. And then for me, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna run into the dishwasher and, you know, just clean it. I knew it was going to get like busted and probably not work at all. But I was like, oh, maybe this will prove if my products are waterproof or not. And I put it into the dishwasher, and when it came out all the dishes, like, I was like, what the fuck, Josk? Why did you put this here? Like, what's dirty? And she was like, okay, I shouldn't ask. This is totally classic you. And obviously I tested, it didn't work. Well, like, okay, whatever.
I was hoping it would work. Damn.
But, you know, like, it's for me, just kind of like have fun with people. That's what, you know, I make friends, you know, easy, new friends. And yeah, we just go on, similar with my group of friends, we are into the same things, and we create more fun for people.
Yeah.
And also for me, something I want to just came to my mind right now is when, you know, when you go out of your day and you go to someone and you kind of like make them laugh, and you just kind of change a little bit of their moment too. And for me, it's really cool. It's just kind of like a way to show people, mostly by telling them that we shouldn't take things too seriously and have fun. Yeah. And people, you know, go with it.
I think like, people resonate with that. Okay,
cool. This is, you know, no our classic, like, just go somewhere and don't talk to anyone and go by.
That's. I think that's you're very magnetic. I think people really are attracted to you because of that energy, because of that sort of willingness to, or eagerness, or just that approach, I guess, to kind of keep things light and not so serious, and be spontaneous and random, and I don't know. That's what I think, anyways. I've got one last question for you. And I stole it from Tim Ferriss. He asked it I was listening to his podcast earlier today, and he says he asks this one quite often. He asks, if you could have a billboard anywhere, Well, let's say a billboard. I'm totally butchering his question. Sorry, Tim Ferriss, who's not going to watch this episode. But if you could have a billboard where millions of people would see it every single day, big billboard, what would you put on it?
I mean, anything.
Have you heard this question before?
No.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely, that's a good one, for
All right.
sure.
What would you put on it?
So a big billboard.
Big billboard.
Anywhere.
Millions of people saw it every single day. Let's say it's on the most often driven street, highway, whatever in LA. What would you put on it?
I'll definitely put a reminder, somehow obviously with imagery and words, so people can see it and can remember, like, here we are all to help each other and we are part of this world, therefore, take of the world and take of each other.
It's
a
good thing it's a big banner. That's a lot of words. But I get the gist.
But I'll try to summarize, a couple of words and one tagline.
Help someone today.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Because like helping usually sometimes for you is nothing, and for people it's like, wow, like you helped me with, it's huge, right?
Yeah.
And you just basically, that's how it happens in all the world, right? Like you help someone helps, and it goes back and it's circulating, and that's what we're here for. We're here just to be here for each other too.
I think that's a pretty darn good place to leave it. So I want to thank you for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy. As always, I'd like to give my guests, you're the third, to plug something of their own. Where can people find you? What should people look at? Audience is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, man.
This has been great. And yeah, definitely for all viewers, I just would like to tell you a little bit more what I'm doing up to right now. I'm just in the process to launch in the next couple months a new company just for online sales funnels and social media ads. Stay tuned. You can find me on my Facebook, Juno Parlange. Right now I have my company's Facebook too, which is Organic Code Design. Usually Facebook is the best way to contact me. Or also my Instagram, which is Share the Awesome.
Share the Awesome?
Yeah.
I like that. Well, we'll make sure that we link to all of that just in case people have a hard time finding it. But other than that, thank you very much.
Thank you so
much. I really
much.
appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
It was great.
And thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. If you liked this episode, then like it, obviously. Subscribe, comment. If you have questions for this guy, leave the questions. I'll make sure that he comes back and answers them. But other than that, we've got another great guest on the show next week. I hope to see you back. See ya.